I want to start today by saying something very clearly. This episode is not about blaming your partner. If nothing else, this is an episode about remembering how great your partner is and how much they do for you. So before I dive into this, let me get real. I am so grateful and so thankful for my better half, my wife. She is the foundation to our family, the rock that gets us through all the ups and downs, and she is the reason I wanted to become more in this life. So babe, if you're still listening to any of these, just remember, I'm grateful, I'm thankful for all that you do, and I love you lots. So let's get back to it. It's not about who's right, who's holding who back, or whose fault it is that things feel the way they feel right now. That's not this discussion. That's not what I'm here for. What I am here for is an honest conversation about something that almost nobody in the self-improvement space talks about because it's so delicate. The fact that you cannot build a better version of your life in isolation from the person you built your current life with. Let me say that again. Is the fact that you cannot build a better version of your life in isolation from the person you built your current life with. The most important conversations most married men haven't had isn't about money. It isn't about the kids. It's about who you both still want to become. And most couples haven't had that conversation in years. I'm the Nosey coach. Let's get into this. Here's how it happens. And it happens to almost everyone. So don't worry. You meet somebody. You're both individuals with your own ambitions, your own dreams, your own picture of what you want your life to look like. And for a while, early on, you actually talk about those things. You talk about the future. You make plans and you dream out loud together. Then life accelerates. Mortgages come, kids arrive, careers take over, and the conversation shifts quietly, gradually, without either of you noticing, from who do we want to become to what needs to get done this week. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's real life. I live that all the time. What are we making for supper? What activities do the kids have this week? Who's going to get the groceries? Those conversations need to happen. Someone has to coordinate those pickup times, the grocery runs, and who's taking the car in for service. That's the infrastructure of a family, and it matters. But somewhere along the way, for a lot of couples, the infrastructure conversation became the only conversation. The operational replaced the aspirational. And now you've got two people running a very efficient household together who haven't actually talked about what they want from their lives in a very long time. You didn't drift apart because you stopped loving each other. You might drift because you got so good at managing life together that you forgot to keep building it together. In my experience, when one partner starts wanting to grow and the other hasn't been brought into that yet, it usually shows up in one of three ways. See if any of these sound familiar. Pattern 1, the silent grower. This is the guy who's been quietly feeling the pull to change, listening to podcasts, reading, thinking, but hasn't said a word to his partner about it. Maybe because he doesn't want to get her hopes up in case he doesn't follow through. Maybe because past conversations about wanting more were ending in friction. Maybe because he's still figuring it out himself, he carries it alone. And the problem with carrying it alone is that it creates distance. Not because anything is wrong between you, but because there's a whole part of you she can't see. You're growing in private, and that gap quietly widens. In fact, that's probably how this first came about for myself. I started this channel quietly, without anybody knowing. And after the first 4 or 5 episodes, I went, how come I'm not sharing this with the person I'm sharing my life with? And truth be told, the minute I did, I got my first subscriber. Great. And then I got some feedback that, in fact, I think helped me out quite a bit. Pattern 2, the friction partnership. This one's a bit harder. This is when you have tried to share the vision, You've talked about wanting more, about making changes, about not wanting to coast forever. And instead of getting enthusiasm, you got pushback. Not cruelty, just resistance. We have a good life. Isn't that enough? Or that feels too risky. Or just a kind of quiet skepticism that deflates you every time. And here's the thing. They're not wrong to be cautious. They're protecting the stability that you've both built. But if each and every reach forward meets friction, eventually you stop reaching. And that builds resentment on both sides. You feel unsupported. You feel like something's wrong with you. Nobody wins. Pattern number 3. The co-pilot who doesn't know when they're flying. This is actually the most hopeful pattern, and it's more common than you'd think. This is where your partner would absolutely be on board, would actually be your biggest champion, if you had just had that conversation. They're not resistant. They just haven't been invited in. You've been treating your growth like a solo project, when really they've been waiting for years for you to bring something worth being excited about together. This guy doesn't have a partnership problem. He has a communication problem. And that's the one thing that is the most fixable in this episode. So how do you actually have that conversation? Not the big dramatic, we need to talk conversation. Nothing good ever starts that way. I mean a real one, a quiet one. Maybe at the end of the night after the kids are down, maybe on a drive somewhere, just two people being honest about more than the schedule. Here's 3 questions worth asking, not all at once, not as an agenda, just as starting points for a conversation that's probably overdue. And if it's not overdue, it's okay to continuously do it. It's called maintenance. We all do it. First question. What do you want our life to look like in 5 years? Not what we have to do, but what do we actually want? You might be surprised by the answer. You might be surprised even by what you say. Secondly, is there something you feel like you've put on hold since we've had kids? Something that was yours? Something that you may want to pick back up? Because if you've been making quiet trades too, it's not just your story. Asking your partner about what trades they've been making and asking about what changes their whole energy of the conversation from I want to be different or I want things to be different to we both deserve more than just managing. The third question, and this is the important one. I've been feeling like I want to grow in some specific ways. I don't want to do it without you. Can you tell me about it? That last one is the door. It's not a declaration. It's not a plan. It's an invitation. You're not announcing a transformation. You're just bringing your partner into the process before the process starts. And that's the difference between a partner who feels like they're chasing you and one who's walking beside you. So, as you know, I like to try and give you one thing per week. Here it is. Find one moment, a quiet, unscheduled, no kids interrupting moment, and ask your partner one of those 3 questions. Not all 3, just one. And then actually listen to the answer. Not to plan your response, but to just hear them. Because here's what I've come to believe. The people who build the most meaningful lives aren't the ones who figured it all out alone. They're the ones who are brave enough to bring the person beside them into the vision and let that partnership become the engine instead of the obstacle. Your partner is not your competition. They are not your resistance. She is, if you bring them into your life, the most powerful ally you can have. Don't leave them on the sidelines of your growth while you try to figure it out solo. They deserve to be in the room. The next episode, we're going somewhere a lot of men don't like to go. We're talking about what your father taught you. The beliefs about manhood, success, and what you're supposed to want that were handed down to you before you were old enough to question them. Some of them are worth keeping. Some of them have been quietly running your life for 20 years without permission. That'll be episode 9, and it's going to be a big one. If this one resonated with you, share it with your partner, share it with a friend, not as a hint, just as a conversation starter. It might be the best thing you do this week. I'm the Nosey Coach. Go have your conversation. I'll see you next time.